I guess, the cybersecurity landscape made you think, I can help here. There is a need.
The ransomware stuff is probably the worst.
How much is it operating system dependent, where people are really focused on the Microsoft operating system?
So people willingly give up their credentials.
What other kind of firewalls, VPNs, et cetera, would you recommend to small businesses?
They understand who's easy targets, and they get targeted again using the same techniques.
It's becoming more and more prevalent. It seems like everybody's trying to get scanned.
They exfiltrate all your data. They send it overseas somewhere.
Well, Jeff, good morning. Thank you for joining the How To Business Show. It's great to have you here. How you doing this morning?
Good. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So founder and CEO of Z-JAK Technologies.
Right.
Just give us a quick blurb about, who Z-JAK is and what you all do.
Yeah. So we started in 2020. Initially, we were doing more consulting, just more like business consulting, IT, high-level strategic consulting. Had some local businesses said, I don't have an IT person. Can you help me? And so started moving more into what we call managed services. So we become the IT department for a small business. So instead of the business owner going out, doing a YouTube search or a Google search, just take over that stuff for them and try to do the work for them. Make sure they're taken care of, make sure they're protected from the cyber bad guys. And then on the sort of what we call, there's really three levels of things we do. So the first is where we do our managed IT. So take over everything, manage everything for them. Then we have some businesses where we call it co-managed, where they might have an IT person in-house, but maybe they're not an expert on servers, or they don't want to do the help desk stuff day to day and reset passwords. We can take that for them. And then the third level is really just that more strategic consulting, which is usually a larger business. They've got a large IT staff, but they have questions about IT best practices or project management. Can you take a look at this and kind of give me some pointers on things we can do better?
Awesome. Yeah, and we will get more into, Z-JAK as a company, but I'd like to kind of start with you as an entrepreneur and your kind of journey.
Yeah.
I mean, you started in tech in 1980s, would you say is when you got?
In the mid-80s, yeah.
So what were you like at that time professionally, and what was the business landscape like for technology? What was the public opinion or the business opinion of technology as a sector?
Yeah, so I was going to speed school and working on my computer engineering degree, and I did an internship for a local insurance agent. And at the time, IBM PCs were just coming out, and started to work for him. Wasn't sure what to do. We went to the computer store, spent $5,000 on an IBM PC with, I don't know how much, like 64K of RAM and 2 floppy drives and a green screen. And he said, figure it out. Help me figure out what I can do with it, how I can help my business, how I can help my clients. So basically plugged it in and went to work, had some fun. So it was pretty amazing. I started watching what the admin staff was doing, figuring out ways to help them with things like, at the time, tools like WordPerfect or spreadsheets at the time. Lotus 123 was kind of new. Those kinds of tools, helping them automate tasks they were doing or make them easier for them to work. Then I started writing custom programs for them and for their clients. So we started writing custom software for auto dealerships at the time. So he was an insurance agent who worked with auto dealers. So wrote some programs to help their finance departments calculate payments, print all the paperwork, all that sort of stuff. By the time I left, when I graduated, I ended up going there and working almost full time until I graduated. And I had 5 people working for me. We had, 150, 200 auto dealers around the state who were using the software I'd written. And then went to work for Fruit of the Loom, get into more of the computer engineering aspect of it, doing manufacturing automation. So at the time, we were using chips that might have 16K of RAM in it. And so you had to do everything very efficiently and, maybe even write stuff in assembler code because it wouldn't fit if you wrote it in C or something else. So just had to be very, very thoughtful on how you coded stuff. And then started my own software company in the 90s, which was kind of a fun time too, because at the time, the internet really wasn't out when I first started. And then seeing that progression the internet comes out in the mid-90s or so, helping businesses get that first online presence that didn't know what to do. We did that for a while, and then I had an internet startup came to me and said, look, and it was actually a client I was working with on some other projects. We're going to start this new company, and we want to build an online insurance company. So nobody had done that at the time. So it was actually a person who had started a bank, sold it to E-Trade. It became E-Trade Bank. Thought that was fun. Let's do it with insurance.
Nice exit.
Yeah, I'm sure he did well. And so let's start an insurance company. So we thought we would build an online insurance company. We would sell this software to other insurance carriers, let them be automated, let them do a lot of stuff online. Didn't really have a lot of uptake on selling the software. So we bought our own insurance company, and we started our insurance company doing the first online insurance company. So everything was completely automated. So starting at what we call instant issue life insurance, which is more common now. But you would start filling out the application. We would have questioning that would change based on how you answered it. So if you said maybe you were a smoker, it might ask more in-depth questions about smoking. As you're going along, we're doing background checks. We're checking your pharmacy records. We're checking your driving record. We're checking your credit report. All these things you agree to as you go. By the time you got to the end, the computer had made an automated decision on whether you were insurable or not and what the rate would be. And then we did an electronic signature, which at the time there was no DocuSign. That didn't exist. So we had to get approval from the SEC to do an electronic signature. So that took a little bit of time. So we were the first approved electronic signature by the SEC. And then eventually we kept building the company over time. And then we sold that to Nationwide Insurance in 2017.
Wow.
So 2020 or so decided that, I wanted to do something different. Wanted to go back out into the startup world and start over again. And I started this business. And like I said, started working with businesses on their IT, where I could help them.
Yeah. And what about, I guess, the cybersecurity landscape made you think, I can help here. There is a need, for my services.
Yeah. So around 2010 or so, I started doing a lot more cybersecurity as part of this insurance company, and just seeing what the bad guys were doing and learning how to protect this large enterprise from those types of attacks, and just saw there was a real need there. And a lot of small businesses don't have the skills and don't know what to look for. So how can I protect them using the same sort of tools I might use for an enterprise to protect the small business?
And this might be kind of a funny question, but who are the bad guys? Because when you watch movies and pop culture, it's some hooded figure in a dark room on a laptop just banging on keys. Yeah. Exactly, the hooded hackers. So who actually are these people that are cyber criminals? Yeah,
so they run it as a business. So what happens is you have people today, and they say the hackers don't hack in anymore. So when you see it in the movies where somebody's trying to break into the computers, that does happen, but it's a lot less likely these days. They say they log in now. So people willingly give up their credentials. They log into a site with their credentials, not thinking that this is maybe an Amazon with 2 Z's, and don't notice it. Yeah. Someone has their Amazon credentials. They use things on the dark web. So when a company gets hacked, those passwords and user IDs are published. So guess what? Now I have all that information on the dark web with your password. And a lot of people, it's hard to memorize a lot of passwords. They use that same password everywhere. They use it for their bank account, for Netflix, whatever they need. And so now all I have to do is I've got this password, I've got your email, maybe your user ID. I just start trying it everywhere. And with automation tools, I can try it across hundreds of websites very quickly, find out where I can log in, and now guess what? I'm in. And it's very easy to get in that way.
And so, you obviously saw this was happening a lot. It's becoming more and more prevalent. It seems like everybody's trying to get scammed nowadays. You get text and calls and emails all the time. And you decided to launch Z-JAK.
Right.
And so, what is Z-JAK's mission, goal? What makes you all different as opposed to the competition?
Yes. So early on, just from my experience running a software company in the 90s, my goal was to help small businesses, but I didn't want to grow this into a giant company where I had lots of employees. I knew I needed 24/7 support. I knew IT is such a broad category. It's difficult to keep up with everything. So I wanted to partner with other companies. So I see myself more like a general contractor in the construction sense. So I bring in the experts. I partner with them, people who are experts in security, people who are experts in even today like AI, those kinds of things. How can I bring in all these different people to serve my clients? So I want to make sure that the small guys have the same protections that the enterprise companies have. So, a large business might have, a large IT staff who's constantly looking out for these things. But you don't hear about all the small businesses that get hacked. And it's every week. I get called probably once a month from a small business who got hacked and needs help recovering their data. So what can I do to help prevent that and prevent them from being the next target that you don't hear about but happens frequently?
So when somebody calls you and says, hey, Jeff, just got hacked,
right?
I'm missing data. I mean, that's one example. Other could be financial. Hey, somebody hacked into my bank accounts.
Yeah.
Took money. What are the common themes or threads of what you get calls on? I guess not the common ones. What are the worst case hacks or that all businesses or small businesses should kind of have in the back of their head?
It's the ransomware stuff is probably the worst. So I don't know if you know what ransomware is. It's when the hackers come in, they exfiltrate all your data. They send it overseas somewhere where we can't do much about it. And then they encrypt all of the data on your hard drive. And then they ask for a ransom to get your data back. So if the business has good backups, that's very helpful because we restore the data. But what a lot of people miss is, sure, I can restore my data because it's encrypted. I can just start over. But they don't take the effort to go in and figure out how they got in the first place. So what happens is the ransomware guys know this is an easy target. They get published just, on the chat, whatever they are, they understand who's easy targets, and they get targeted again using the same techniques. So we need to understand what happened, fix those issues, and then do the restore. So one of the first things I tell people to do if they have something like that, disconnect from the internet. Let's check your computers, see if we can figure out what happened, why it happened, change all your passwords. If you've got Microsoft 365, let's change all your passwords. Let's lock down all the ways people can get in first, and then let's take a few minutes and figure out what happened and why it happened. And then we do the restore. They've got to be really careful because if you decide to pay that ransom because you don't have good backups, and let's say that business, and I call it a business because it is, if you pay that overseas hacker a ransom to get your data back, and they happen to be on a terrorist watch list, now guess what? You're in trouble because you're financing terrorism, and Homeland Security is going to come after you, and you might have to pay fines because of that.
True.
So hopefully you've got insurance. If you've got cyber insurance, that will help with your forensics. And I tell people, if you have insurance, before you do anything, let's disconnect. Let's lock everything down. Let's call your insurance company, and let's get the forensics team involved.
Interesting.
Because they will have certain procedures they want to do as part of their procedures to make sure that you're going to be covered and protected. And then we might even negotiate with the hackers for a little while just to buy time. And while we're buying time, we're recovering backups, doing the forensics, trying to figure things out, and then we just cut off access and don't respond to it.
How are you negotiating with the hackers? Is it email, or are they calling with one of those encrypted voices or something?
It's usually over chat.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Just like you get on chat support with whoever, the local company, and you do chat, jump on a chat with them and say, hey, I got this. We might ask for things like proof that they actually got your data. And then what even might happen is if you decide you're not going to pay, they may threaten to put your data on the internet. So you've got to decide, if it's worth it to you to pay to not have your data on the internet. They may even call you and threaten you with different things, based on that, say, we're not going to, if you don't pay, we're going to start calling you. We're going to harass you. We might even call your clients and tell your clients or your patients, hey, we've got your data, just to put you in a bad spot. So you not only have that damage from your business, you can't work because you're recovering everything, but now you've got that reputational damage because, you're seen as somebody who doesn't protect their client data or their patient data.
Yeah. And, before we came in here, I was watching an interview you did with, I think it was Wave. And the theme was how to protect your kids from, cybersecurity threats and how to have those conversations with them. And the interview asked you, how do I have these conversations with my kids where they're not just going to, forget about it? And you had a good answer of the same way that you tell a business owner is through stories, right? Whether you're selling an idea, whatever you're selling, if you can pitch it in a story, it makes it more memorable and it hits home. So, what are some of those real world stories that you use with business owners when you're sitting in front of them to put all this into perspective so they really get, hey, this is a problem I need to address now?
Yeah, there's so many stories. A business who, for example, had a ransomware attack and had never tested their backups. They tried to restore everything and their backups didn't work. Now what? So backups are great, but if you don't test them, it's like you don't have a backup. I had another business where you were working from home. The kid comes home from college, plugs in their computer to the home network, and his computer had a virus on it. Infected the business computer, and then from there jumped into the business itself and was able to access the business data. So protecting people who are working from home. We talk about that. Another business who had a ransomware attack, they did all the right things. They had good backups. But because they got in the first place, they had a bunch of people who couldn't work for 2 weeks. And this business had to pay them. It wasn't their fault that the business had this problem, but they still had to keep paying these people while they recovered all the data. So those are just a few stories, but it's usually kind of learning more about the business and then sharing some stories that have happened to businesses that are similar to theirs.
That makes sense. And so, when you're talking to these business owners, I'm sure, sometimes it can be tough because it's almost like you're solving a problem that maybe they haven't experienced yet. So it can be tough for them to realize, hey, this is actually something that needs to be addressed. So you tell them these stories. Right. But do you get pushback from these business owners just saying, look, I'm too small or not in my industry, or this is just not something I need to worry about. I need to make payroll and I got a million other things to worry about. How do you respond to those objections?
Yes. So a few years ago, I had a business who said, it'll never happen to me. We're too small. 2 months later, they called me and said, hey, we got hacked. So it happens to everybody. So the hackers are scanning the internet constantly. They're looking for opportunities. It's not that they're necessarily targeting small businesses. They're targeting everybody. But the smaller businesses don't have the security that a larger business might have. So they're usually easier targets. So that's why you see, I think they said 60% of small businesses have had some sort of cyber incident, whether that's clicking an email they shouldn't and something happens, maybe their password gets exposed, to, a large-scale ransomware attack where they get taken down. Yeah. So
it's funny, we had something like this happen where it sent us to a dummy link with the Microsoft login. Which it makes me think, it's like, from what I hear, it's like these how much is it operating system dependent where people are really focused on the Microsoft operating system versus, what are the others out there? There's the Apple operating system. Is there the majority or a breakdown of how many businesses are using each and then how many cyber attacks go towards those operating systems?
Yeah, you see it more on Windows just because there's so many Windows devices out there. It's not that they're not targeting Macs, and Macs definitely get targeted. I've seen it. Despite what Apple says in their promotions and so on, and people think, I've got an Apple computer, I can't be hacked. Well, Apple makes it more difficult. Their design is more secure than Windows, just the way they've designed their stuff. But it's still hackable. If I give you my password, I'm in.
Yeah, you can log in.
It doesn't matter what kind of security I have.
Right.
So the thing you talked about with Microsoft, I've seen a lot of that lately, where someone sends me a document and it says, this is from my friend.
Right.
We correspond often, He sent me a document. I had one a few weeks ago from someone asking for a proposal.
I've seen an invoice.
Yeah. And somebody I knew asked for a proposal.
It's their actual email.
Right. It's from their email. Yeah. Everything looks good. I tried to call the person to ask them about it. I got their voicemail. I thought, okay, let me just take a look. I click it and it opens up a Microsoft login. Yeah. Okay, this doesn't look right.
Right.
And so when I saw that, I called them again, didn't get a message back. I called their IT person, let them know, and then just kind of left it. And then a couple hours later, the IT person sent a message out, said, hey, if you got this email, don't open it, don't click it. But if I had entered my Microsoft credentials, I put in my user ID, I put in my password, I might even get that push notification with that 2-factor code. I put that in, and now this hacker has authentication into my account. They can get into my OneDrive. They can copy all those files. And when I've seen that happen, within minutes, people are logging in from overseas, from China, North Korea, Africa, Eastern Europe, wherever, trying to get into those accounts. And it happens very, very quickly. So we use some automated tools with some AI built in that looks for that unusual type behavior, and we automatically lock the accounts when we see that. Yeah. So you just have to be very quick about it.
What other kind of firewalls, VPNs, et cetera, would you recommend to small businesses as like baseline checklist items?
Yeah, you want something that looks for things like intrusion detection. If you're looking for patterns of people trying to just look for vulnerabilities on your firewall, the other thing to look out for is what we call that data exfiltration sort of behavior. So things that, like if someone's sending a social security number out through your documents, that might be suspicious. So let's say they log in, they access your HR department, and they start exfiltrating HR records. Well, if you start seeing that through the firewall, you want something that can monitor that type of data and block that connection. So you can do that as well.
Interesting.
Yeah. And most of the good commercial firewalls today have that capability. I've seen a number of businesses who are just using the basic Spectrum modem and firewall, which just do not have that kind of ability.
And are these, applications, are they automated, or do you have to have someone behind the scenes who gets notified, hey, they're sending out those documents, we need to click stop, or does it just happen automatically?
Well, the functionality is there, but you need somebody to configure it. Okay. So by default, most of the time it's off. So you have to have the capability to go in, read the manual, figure out how to turn it on, set up whatever your rules are, if you have HIPAA rules or SOC or whatever, to make sure that you're complying with all those sorts of rules.
Gotcha. So in our business, I'm thinking about data and privacy. We use data rooms to store confidential information. What are the best practices on, are you familiar with like data rooms in the transaction world?
Yeah, absolutely.
What are the best practices on setting those up and maintaining confidentiality?
Right. So setting something like that, make sure that you've got the capability to turn 2-factor authentication on. So just having that on is going to eliminate a lot of the types of things that can happen. If you're just doing something like, let's say you're sharing a OneDrive folder, or people can drop documents in there, make sure you have sensitivity labels turned on. So what will happen is if you turn those labels on and you label your documents as confidential, if someone were to copy that document away from your OneDrive account, they can't open it because it's encrypted. It only works with your credentials in your environment.
Going back to the business, I'm interested to know, how many employees do you have? Because you mentioned wanting to keep the team small, on purpose. And how many businesses are you able to service with your team?
So it's primarily me. So what happens is I partner with a group out of Dallas called the 20. So there's around 200 IT companies that have partnered with them around the country. So we call it like an IT co-op kind of thing. So what happens is we all pay in to the team in Dallas. They staff a help desk for us. So rather than me, if I want to do 24/7 help desk support, I would have to have, at least 6 to 7 people, because you've got to have at least a couple for each shift. So somebody goes to lunch, somebody's on vacation, who's going to cover that call? So by doing this, I'm able to scale the business up and serve a lot of clients. So what happens is when I sign on a new client, I come in and do that initial assessment, onboarding, documenting everything. Usually I ask them to call me for about the first month if they have any issues. And then once I'm comfortable, I've got everything documented properly, then I hand them off to the help desk. The help desk handles 95% of the issues. It doesn't matter where they are. We prefer it to be U.S. based. Native born U.S. speakers makes it easier when people are frustrated, easier to understand. So they're working with them that are in their time zone. And then they take care of the issue. If they can't, let's say it's a hard drive that crashed, then they call me and we take care of it. So it makes it very easy to scale without that having to have a large team. And then I've got a couple of people who just work on a contract basis, and they come in and help out as needed. So once we onboard them and we get everything going, most of the time my role has been more strategic. How do we make sure your business keeps moving forward? What are your goals? Where are you stuck? I'm available anytime they want to call and talk. If they want to, say, order new computers. Windows 10 is coming up end of life here in a couple of weeks. What should I buy? I can either buy it for them, or I can give them a shopping list, or they can say, this is what I'm thinking about. What do you think? I say, no, you need this and this. That's not going to work for you. This is a good short-term solution. Don't go with the $200 computer that you see on sale somewhere. It's just not going to work for you. You're not going to be happy. So help them avoid those mistakes. And then if they want to talk about just anything, like I'm thinking about making this strategic decision, how can IT support it? So a lot of businesses today don't really think about IT as a strategic advantage in their business. When you look at, I always give the example of Domino's. Domino's says they're not a pizza company. They're a technology company that sells pizza. How can you use technology to be a strategic advantage in your business to help you grow? How can you take advantage of things, especially like with AI tools today? How can you use that to help expand your business without hiring a large staff? There's a lot going on there.
Yeah, you just touched on AI, and I'm sure in your world that's a reoccurring question. But like IT, there's so many facets of AI.
Right.
And how does it, affect the work you're doing on the IT side? How does it affect the, just business work that you're doing? Break down the most common AI questions that you're receiving from your cybersecurity clients, and then maybe we can talk about some other things you're seeing in the AI landscape.
Yeah. So the biggest thing I see is people jump in without thinking through the privacy implications. What are the privacy policies of ChatGPT? If I have the free account and I upload my tax return, now guess what? It's on the internet. So it's going to use that to train its model. Yeah. I know I've heard of cases where engineers uploading documents or drawings to get ideas, and then the Chinese government now has access to those drawings. People uploading legal briefs or confidential information that now become public content for that model. So making sure you have a good privacy policy set up, making sure your employees understand the privacy implications. The free model's not going to be great. When you pay more, you get more privacy. I think the pro version of ChatGPT, I think, keeps your data for 30 days. But then even things like Copilot from Microsoft, completely segregated environment. So each company has their own environment, so that's going to be the most private. That's included with your 365. If you just want to do things like the, asking a question, the chat sort of functionality. Right. When you get into the agents and you have agents doing work for you, that's a little more complicated. Then you get into what's called agentic AI, where you give it a task and you let the AI figure out how to do it. So, and that's really becoming a bigger thing these days.
So,
yeah.
In the free version of ChatGPT, are you saying, now that if you upload your tax return, now it's on the internet?
it becomes part of its learning.
Sure.
So it's learning from things that people ask it.
And so would the hacker have to hack into ChatGPT to pull that information, or is it in the agreement that this is public to everybody to access?
It's asking the right questions, searching through it, asking the right questions, and then just discovering it. Not necessarily that, it's just on a Google search now, but just going out there and discovering it. It's not like very easy. I couldn't just go out and say, hey, show me the tax return for John Smith.
Sure.
It's a little more complicated than that, but it definitely goes into its knowledge base.
So there is a set of questions that could potentially be asked to spit your information out to the person asking those questions.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. And you're saying the pro version does what to protect against that?
It keeps the data more confidential, and then it doesn't store anything that you ask it for more than, I think, 30 days.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think ChatGPT is one of those things that is so prevalent now. I mean, a lot of people that, we talk to or work with, I mean, they use it all the time for emails, communication, questions. I mean, it's so prevalent out there. Mm-hmm. And so your advice would be, at minimum, have the pro version?
At minimum, yeah. And just be careful. Even the pro version, I still wouldn't upload anything confidential.
Right. Mm-hmm. Who knows? It's a black box.
You just don't know, right? Yeah. So just be careful. I tell people, if you're not sure, ask it. So even on the pro version, ask it what its privacy policies are. Ask it if it's okay to upload confidential information.
It'll tell you no.
It'll tell you no. And so we know sometimes it makes up the answers,
right?
But called hallucinations.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But that's one I would probably believe.
Yeah. Are you seeing any agentic applications in your business that you're experimenting with right now?
So the agentic AI is becoming more common now. You hear more about things like Tesla, for example, where you give it, these are the guidelines, this is what I want you to do. You give it an objective, and it figures out how to do it. Another good example is, let's say you tell it, an agent, I'm planning the European vacation. I want you to find the best deal for me, book the flights. I would like to leave around October 1st. What can you do to help me? And then it goes out, you give it the guidelines, you give it the rules, and it goes out and takes care of everything for you. Whereas the generative AI like ChatGPT is more answering questions. It's responding to you. It's not going out and doing things on its own. So what we're seeing now is things like, maybe it's a sales agent, which they still sound fake to me when I get those calls.
Right.
But you give it an objective, give it the guidelines, the guardrails, and it goes out and figures out how to make that happen. Yeah.
But anything in your business that you're experimenting task-wise, I mean, because the AI chat bots are the first, thing that gets unveiled, and they say, it's going to replace customer support, and I'm sure in a lot of businesses it has reduced the overhead for support people, but in your business, you have 24/7 help desk. I mean, I'm sure they're probably using AI, but there's not a full replacement yet of, AI bots doing the help desk work.
Right. So where we're seeing it a lot more right now is in cybersecurity. So when you look at somebody, an analyst who's looking at reams and reams of data streaming across, and that can just be, to look at all that data and pick something out, where you can give an agentic AI tool, these are the rules, these are the kinds of patterns that I'm looking for. And what it can do is things like I was talking about. If I see this pattern, someone logs in from Kentucky and Poland within a couple of minutes of each other, probably not something that should be happening, and automatically locking an account. Cybersecurity is a big thing with AI right now. Unfortunately, the bad guys are using AI as well.
Yep.
So just protecting your business that way.
Yeah.
How are the bad guys just using AI that you've seen, besides, I guess, those robocalls that sound like, I guess the stories that I've heard is almost cloning people's voices.
Yeah.
Call the grandparents as the grandson. I'm in jail. Give me $10K right now.
Right.
I mean, are there any other stories like that are real world that you're like, man, that's something you need to pay attention to?
Think about how much public information you have on yourself these days from Facebook.
Thanks, Facebook.
Everywhere.
I mean, your thumbprint on your phone, your Face ID, it scans your face when you log in.
Yeah, it could be anything. So, but all that data is easily accessible. So if, for example, in the past where I might have sent you the generic letter, I've got $10 million. I just need somebody in the U.S. to open an account so I can transfer this money to this Nigerian prince type scam. Now it's very targeted. So I know who you are, where you work, recent promotions. I know who your family is. I know when your birth date is. I can send you a very, very targeted email that's very specific to you that's going to make you more likely to open it. If I can get you to open it and click a link, now I can get you. So now maybe I can download malware, or I can get you to enter your credentials because you trust it. It's from somebody you know. Congratulations on your promotion. Here's a gift card. Here's a greeting card. Good job.
Yep.
Hey, that's awesome. Thanks a lot. So you click the link, not thinking about it. You log into your Amazon account to redeem the gift card, and now they have access to your Amazon account.
Yeah, I mean, there used to be just common practices as, on social media. It's like, don't tell people you're going on vacation, or,
right.
And now everybody's posting about it. People post pictures of their children it's like not even a second thought anymore. I mean, are those common practices just accepted now? It's like, hey, this is what we're going to deal with now if you want to live in this social media environment that we have now.
Right.
I mean, are you still telling people, hey, you need to pay attention to these, best practices, these simple things that you can do to protect yourself?
Exactly. Even things like the security questions. I don't answer them with real answers. I give it fake answers. Your dog's name. Just make up something. And then I use a password manager and I store the answers to all those security questions.
What type of password manager do you use?
I use either Keeper or Password Boss, or the two I recommend.
Okay.
But there's a bunch of them on the market. Yep. Just do something. Okay. The ones that are built into Chrome and Safari and Explorer and Edge, all those things, are just not very good.
Okay.
And, for people who aren't aware, what exactly does a password manager do and the technology behind it?
Yeah, so what it does is it creates an encrypted vault with all of your passwords in it. So rather than you having to remember several hundred different passwords, you say, for this website, here's my user ID, here's my password. It encrypts that data. When you go to that site to log in, you've got one password to remember. You remember your password to your password manager. Make it very long. Make it something you can remember. You might have to practice it for a while. Make sure you maybe put it in a vault somewhere or give it to somebody else, because if you lose that, there's nothing you can do about it. You lose all of it. So put those passwords. It'll generate passwords for you. So mine are all at least 20 characters long, different ones for all the sites. I've got 1,000+ passwords. Most of them are different. There's no way you could remember that.
Mm-hmm.
And so people do things like they put a name or something with, maybe it's #1. The next time it's #2, then #3. Well, the hackers can see that pattern when they unencrypt your passwords, and then they just start trying them.
Yeah.
So it's just, they can use a robot to just try hundreds and hundreds of passwords very, very quickly. So I tell people, just assume all of your data is public and act accordingly.
Yeah.
So if you assume everything is already on the internet, what can you do to protect it? So doing things like locking your credit report. It's free to freeze your credit report. There's tools like LifeLock, for example, that will help you do that stuff. If you don't feel comfortable doing it all yourself, you can use a tool like that. Or if you want to do it, you can go to each of the 3 bureaus and you can just do a freeze. And that way, if somebody were to try to get a credit card in your name, for example, it makes it a lot more difficult. You just have to remember, if you go do something like apply for a home loan, like you guys might work with somebody like that, unfreeze that credit report before they do the loan.
Mm-hmm.
Then freeze it back when you're done. Another thing is make sure you've got 2-factor authentication turned on. You can eliminate a ton of hacks by doing that.
Yeah,
it seems like that's becoming pretty common practice for everything. Is that 2-factor authentication, and why does that make it so much secure?
Well, because now you get that text, or you get an app. You have to put a code in from that app to log in. With Microsoft, you get the push notification. We have to put your thumbprint on maybe, and then put the digits that you see. Those kinds of things are going to make it more difficult for a hacker to get that data.
And, do hackers, maybe see something like that and just think there's, easier fish to fry, just move on and go look for somebody else?
Not necessarily. They're like I said, they're trying everything. So they're looking for anybody who might not have that turned on. So if you go to your bank and you log into your bank account and it says you need to set up two-factor, and you say, skip, I'll do it later, and you keep doing that, somebody may get in using your password they found on the dark web. So those kinds of things will help protect your 90+% of the time, protect you. I'm not trying to be scary. But
yeah. Tanner touched on this a minute ago with just talking about Z-JAK and in your business. Where do you see the next 3 to 5 years? You know, the customers you're working with, is it, where do you see the next 3 to 5 years of Z-JAK?
Yes, so it's kind of interesting because we're kind of in this new inflection point with tech. You know, we had the first big one I remember is, you know, the PCs. Then you had the internet. And then what was it? Probably smartphones, you know, mid-2000s, cloud computing, social media, and now you have generative AI, now agentic AI. So these big inflection points are always opportunities for businesses to take advantage of them and stay ahead of their competition. So in this discussion with somebody the other day, they said, you know, kids today need to learn to use other research techniques. They need to learn how to use Google and go to the library. And that's great. You probably should learn how to do that. But the kids who are going to get hired today are ones who know how to use AI to do that research for them. You know, why do I want my employees spending 30 minutes Googling something and accumulating the answer when I can write the right prompt in an AI tool? Research this topic for me. Give me your recommendations, or give me a summary of this topic and what, you know, your opinion on it, or the best practices around this topic. Those are the kinds of people coming out of school who are going to get those jobs. Doesn't mean you don't know how to do those other things, but those are the kinds of things that's really going to give you a leg up when you're working today. So for businesses, taking advantage of those tools, the businesses that really learn to take advantage of these tools are the ones who are going to get ahead. So how can we incorporate things like, you know, generative AI safely so they can get things done more quickly? How can I use agentic AI to automate some of the tasks I do every day? I give it a goal. How can it help me get that goal? So I think between those two, those are going to be two big drivers in business in the next 3 to 5 years.
But your business, is it going to stay kind of your sole proprietorship? You're just solo entrepreneur consulting. You're not growing into some organization that you talked about. You can outsource the help desk stuff. And
yeah, we do all the help desk stuff. We're going to continue to do all that kind of work. At some point, I'm not going to live forever, so we'll probably roll up into a larger organization. We might join forces with all these other IT companies. The nice thing about that relationship is we all use the same tools. So if any of us decide to merge or work together, it's a lot easier for us to do that. The only thing that would change for my clients was who the bill came from. Nothing changes on their day-to-day work, doesn't change who they call, doesn't change any tools they use, doesn't change anything except the bill. So I like that advantage for my clients. If we decide to merge with another company or whatever, we've got that already sort of thought ahead.
yeah,
So my philosophy from the beginning was I talked to somebody the other day about the E-myth, you know, building your business like it's a franchise. How do you start? And that's where the Z came from, starting with the end in mind. So we start with the Z. So we're starting with the end. What are the goals? I want to make sure that this company is something that can continue to grow with or without me. Everything's documented. We use standardized processes. We're building it like it's a franchise. So how do we do that? How do we make sure that we're following standard procedures so that it can continue to grow, to make it very easy, where if I'm on vacation, things can still operate.
right. What other books like the E-Myth have given, you know, that you've been drawn to, that you've taken some wisdom from?
Another good one I love is called Who, Not How. You've read that one, but it's basically, instead of thinking through how do I do this task, who can help me with this task? So, and it's not necessarily that you're handing off that task completely. You know, if you were to hire somebody to build your house, you wouldn't say, I want a house. You'd give them some guidance. You know, want 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, 2 stories, whatever the guidelines are, but you're giving them those guidelines. So what I do is, when I'm working with a marketing company or somebody, these are the kinds of goals, objectives I want to have. I need you to help me figure out how to get there.
Gotcha.
And I'm going to take their advice and work with them. I'm going to outsource that data to them and let them help me get there. Same thing with IT. Rather than the owner wearing 10 different hats trying to run and do everything on their own, I want to take that IT aspect off of their shoulders. Tell me what your objectives are. What do you want to do with your business? I'm going to help you get there. So whether that's taking off that help desk load, our average response to a question, if somebody calls the help desk, is under 2 minutes. So what does that mean for your business? If you can call and you're talking to a tech within 2 minutes, who's going to help you resolve an issue? You're locked out of your account. If you call somebody and you're waiting on somebody to call you back, it might be 5 minutes, it might be 2 hours, depending on how busy that tech is.
Right.
So by me partnering with this larger organization to do help desk, we're able to resolve things very, very quickly. So I think our average response time or average overall time talking to somebody to figure out an issue is 20 minutes. What does that mean for your business? If people are working again in 20, 30 minutes versus several hours.
And you're not the one getting distracted helping them solve that. It's
right.
Taken care of.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And I still get calls, people asking questions.
Well, not even you, the business owner. The business owner doesn't have to stop what he's doing to help the employee.
Yeah, and a lot of times what you'll find is somebody, the 25-year-old in the business who's the most tech savvy, so to speak, gets the call because, hey, you know computers, right?
Yeah.
You grew up with computers. Can you help me fix this? And then they want to help, so they might go Google the answer or ask ChatGPT the answer to fix an issue.
Mm-hmm.
Do you really want that employee wasting their time doing that when you can basically subscribe to a help desk who can do that for you?
And obviously, the answer is no. So this thought I just had, all these software subscription services are pay per seat.
Right.
And in some of them, you don't really need every person on the team to have access because you're not going to be all using it at the same time. Mm-hmm. And so we try to set up, like, is there a way to set up an organizational email and to have one seat across different platforms? And then these companies will make you have two-factor authentication. So then it then bugs the one person who's got to let somebody else into that platform. Is that probably a violation to the terms of service?
Probably.
So immediate no, not possible. But is that something that you've dealt, like, is that possible to set up if it was allowed?
You can set that up. I don't recommend it. And here's why. Let's say you have somebody who leaves. It's a disgruntled employee, whatever. They still have access to that account when they leave. It doesn't make it easy to track. So Salesforce, for example, let's say you had one employee or you have one account and you had 3 employees logging into Salesforce. One employee is doing something they shouldn't be doing. You don't know who did it. You can't track it down to an individual person. So having that trackability where you can see who's doing what, especially if it's somebody, and you never know. I mean, they might be a great employee, but they want to move on. Maybe they want to copy all of your customer data. Well, now I can track it down to an individual to see who stole that data before they left. So it just makes it a lot more secure and a lot more traceable.
Gotcha. Okay. But maybe for some other in-depth software applications.
Right. If you're sharing your Netflix password, that might be different than something else, but
Crack down on that. What's up with that? And I feel like everyone else is going to follow them. Is Amazon going to follow them? Because shout out to my brother Craig.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it seems like all the password stuff is really getting cracked down on. That's unfortunate. I mean, everybody was sharing passwords. It seemed like the whole city was on one account.
Yeah. When my son moved out, he was using my Netflix password for a while, and then they cracked down on it. And he called me and goes, "Hey, they're telling me I have to get my own account now." Like, welcome to the real world.
Yeah. But yeah, so we'll wrap up here with, we like to do a couple rapid fire questions, just, simple, easy ones. But before we do that, just tell our listeners who are more interested in the topic or maybe your services, where they can find you, how they can get a hold of you.
Yeah. So Z-JAK Technologies, I chose that name because it's easy to find. It doesn't mesh with anybody else. We're the first 3 or 4 pages of a search result, but Z as in zebra, JAK.net. Plenty of information there. We have resources, even things like if you want to check email deliverability, which is a big issue these days. There's a tool there where you can check how good is your email deliverability. Is it going to go to spam? That kind of stuff is there. We have blog articles we posted every 4 or 5 days. Lots of content. Buyer's guide. If you're looking for an IT company, buyer's guide with questions to ask your IT company. We'll do security assessments for you. How secure is your business? We're going to help you find that out. Whether you hire us or not, we want to make sure that you're secure. You can take that same data, give it to your internal IT people, give it to your current IT provider. We want to make sure businesses are protected. So if they just visit us online, the phone number, email's all there. I'm on LinkedIn. They can connect with me on LinkedIn, send me a message there as well.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely do that. Jeff obviously knows what he's talking about. Yeah, and tell him you heard about him from the show, and we'd appreciate that. But
Thanks.
We'll wrap it up here. Cal touched on one of our kind of rapid fire questions we like to ask, but just, what book, has had the biggest impact on your entrepreneurial career?
Yeah, going back, E-Myth, Who Not How. Another one is The Phoenix Project, which is an IT novel. So that one's kind of a fun one.
Interesting.
But just thinking about processes. How do you build a company that's technology first? And how do you solve problems in IT? So those 3 are probably the big ones.
Gotcha.
I like that. And then what is, an activity or something that you do on the weekends after just a long, long week of work that helps you decompress and just relax and escape?
Yeah, I like to get outside. So I do gardening, hiking. I love to go camping, those kinds of things.
It's that time of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many great places in Louisville to do that. Different parks. I like going to Jefferson Memorial Forest. That's an awesome place to go.
We're going to go this afternoon. Bernheim.
Yeah,
So,
Bernheim. Yeah. Doing the Millennium Trail there. That's a fun trail. I think it's 13 or 14 miles.
Yeah, the last question is, if business meetings had a walk-up song, you familiar with that?
Yeah.
What would your walk-up song be?
Oh, my goodness. I have no idea.
You'll have to get back to us on this.
I'll have
It's
to
a
get
big
back
one.
to you. I can't think about that right now.
It's usually gets a lot of interesting answers. I forget what, John Thurman, that's how we got connected.
Yeah.
I forget what John Thurman was. I think Time for Me to Fly, REO Speedwagon.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so that was a good one. Did you ever answer what yours was, Cal?
Bayana.
Yep.
Bahiana.
It's a weird word to pronounce, and it has no words, but it's just a good bop. Yeah.
I think mine would probably be something by AC/DC, but
yeah, there you go.
I changed mine.
I grew up in the 70s, so lots of 70s rock, 80s, early 80s rock.
Okay, a little Van Halen, Metallica.
Led Zeppelin, Boston, Journey, all those guys, yeah.
There we go. Well, Jeff, we really appreciate you coming on. This is a great conversation.
Thanks.
Thank you.